James was so thrilled when Dr.
I'm very sorry. Mr. Turnbull apparently left what little he had to the Egyptology department at London University. And Windbank left everything to his wife Hildegard.
What about Weatherby?
Ditto. Everything was left to his wife Clarissa, although being such a young chap, it hardly seems that he had much to leave at all.
Sorry, Holmes.
It's quite amusing, all this hoopla over a mummy's curse, I must say. Not so amusing, of course, the murder of 3 Englishmen.
Have any of your reporters uncovered anything new?
Actually, I've been in Paris the past several weeks. Just returned to London on Tuesday. I've had no involvement with the writing of any of these articles. I believe they are all the work of Philip Travis. He's one of our young reporters. For a short time, he was the Egyptian correspondent.
Was he sacked?
No. He returned to London just a few days ago. I gather he was reassigned to cover the case from here because he...
Pettigrew wrote this book over 50 years ago, and there's still nothing better on...
Beg your pardon, but could I have a word with you, Sir Jasper?
Dr. Watson, of course. Are you investigating the death of Samuel Sneed? I just finished with him.
No, we're interested in James Windibank.
Ah, the mummy's latest victim, of course. Who hired Holmes for this one? King Tut?
Oh, that's a jolly good one. Actually, we don't have a client on this one.
Just for fun, eh? Well, about the only thing I can tell you is that mummy has very powerful hands.
What do you mean?
The trachea was crushed along with one of the vertebrae of the neck. Death was instantaneous. Snap.
But the paper's reports say that there were mummy wrappings found round the neck.
Just window dressing. Without question, it was bare hands. The bruises and the way that the vertebrae was crushed leave no doubt about that.
Thank you very much for your time, Sir Jasper. We're very much appreciative.
Not at all, Watson. You will let me know when you've convicted the mummy.
Beg your pardon?
Well, so I can perform an autopsy on him. Would be most fascinating, don't you think?
They had absolute...
It appears...
This seat...
Pity.
They had absolute...
It appears...
Windibank's body was found in the mummy's case.
Inside it?
Precisely.
One of the guards, Henry Witherspoon, discovered it when making his rounds. He noticed that the lid was askew and a hand was sticking out of it. By the look on his face when he came to summons me, he must have thought that the mummy was attempting to leave its resting place. Some of the guards have been a bit on edge, you know, since the stories about Dr. Turnbull's death.
What happened when you arrived at the scene?
Witherspoon assisted me in removing the lid, and there was the body of James Windibank. Around his neck was a bandage of linen.
And the mummy was missing?
No, it was in there too. Underneath poor Windibank, completely undisturbed, not a length of its sheeting unraveled.
Who had access to the exhibit room?
Well, the room was officially closed yesterday while we set up the exhibit, but the museum was open and we took no extraordinary precautions to keep people out.
Can you think of anyone who might have wanted to kill Windibank?
None at all. I actually didn't know him very well. He did work for the museum, you see. He was with the London University. The university and the museum were joint sponsors of the Ketterbeck expedition.
Mr. Johnson, can you think of anything whatsoever that might shed some light on this affair?
No, I'm very sorry. I can't think of a thing. I only hope that all this publicity doesn't keep people away from the exhibit.
Sorry, Hope.
This seemed to be it. I question.
What?
This seemed.
Sorry, Holmes.
No.
Pity. It appears that no one is here.
They had abs.
Pity.
They had absolute.
It appears.
This seemed.
Pity.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court now stands in order. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? Positively incorrect. I'm afraid you haven't done a good enough job of putting your brains to the task. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer? Terribly sorry, gentlemen, that is not at all correct. Here, Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? Terribly. Here, Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? Terribly. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? Positively in. Here, Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy. Terribly sorry, gentlemen, that is not at all correct.
What did you learn? What did you learn?
Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murder. Positively incorrect. I'm afraid you haven't done a good enough job of...
They had...
Pity.
They had absolutely...
What did you learn, What?
This seemed to be it. I quite...
They had a...
Pity.
Sorry, Holmes. No info. This.
I question.
They had absolutely no information. They had.
This seemed. This.
They had absolutely no.
What did you learn, Watson?
Not a. Sorry, Holmes. No information here.
Well, let's not.
They.
Dr. Turnbull, he was a strange one, he was. All he ever at home, always traipsing about a Lord knows where.
May I take a look at his things?
Oh, suit yourself. All he had is a big pile of books about Egyptian mummies and a few maps. He was a son of an earl, he was. Though you hardly tell from looking at him, poor fellow. Do you really think this mummy thing's what's done him in? Creepy, I says.
Let me tell you, a murder, even by a 4,000-year-old mummy, was only one odd thing in a string of bad luck on this voyage.
What sort of bad luck?
It all started with the crew, really. Seamen were a rather superstitious lot to begin with, and the idea carrying about a 4,000-year-old mummy had them shivering in the timbers. We almost faced a bloody mutiny. Then there were the passengers, a strange lot. I can tell you that reporter fellow, Travis, did us no service at all with his mystic mumbo-jumbo. He and Professor Winterbank had a regular war of words going on about whatever powers this mummy was supposed to have. And there was the two Arabs.
Arabs? Interesting. Do you recall their names?
I should hope I do. One was called Fahmy. He always carried around this curious little box. No clue what was in it, but Fahmy never let it out of his sight. The other one's name was Al-Sad, and he spent most of his time lurking about watching Fahmy. My guess is he wanted that box.
Sounds like you had your hands full.
I haven't even told you about the fight yet between Mr. Weatherby and Mr. Urubaru.
Over what?
Weatherby's wife, I'd say, though they were a tight-lipped lot about it.
I see. Tell me, Lieutenant, we understand that you were the first person to discover the body.
Yes, sir, I was. Captain Ramsey sent me down to inspect the hold. I went immediately over to them Egyptian crates. Professor Winterbank was particularly anxious about him, you know.
Could you describe the scene as you remember it?
I'll never forget it. I just made my way to the back of the hold, and I noticed at the top of them crates, the one what carried the mummy's coffin was raised up kind of funny like. The coffin lid was laid off to one side, and there was Mr. Weatherby all sprawled on the floor next to a bowl of ashes. He'd been strangled by a length of the mummy's sheeting. It was bloody gruesome, I tell you. Poor bloke's eyes popped out like a couple of sausages on a hot iron skillet.
Quite a vivid picture, don't you agree, Holmes?
Quite. And you reported this to Captain Ramsay straight away?
Absolutely. In fact, the captain put me in charge of the entire investigation.
And what did you discover? Did anybody have any contact with Weatherby on the night of the murder?
Not that I know of. I could account for all the crew. The passengers were in their cabins as far as anyone knew or would say. Nobody saw anything, heard anything, or knew anything. Besides, Weatherby was seasick from the beginning. He stayed pretty much in his cabin all the time. Maybe that's why the lovely young Mrs. Weatherby was gallivanting about.
With Uruburu?
Yes, indeed.
And what of the bowl? Where is it now?
The bowl?
With the ashes.
Oh, yes. You know, now that you mention it, I don't recall ever seeing it again.
I was mute all the time. Oh, sorry. I'm just giving up.
Mr. Turnbull apparently left what little he had.
I'm just trying to figure.
Sorry I can't help you, Ducky, but Mr. Smith has been out of the country since the middle of March. He's a good-looking bloke, except for the dirt under his fingernails.
Carriers and carriers, sir.
Pity.
Sorry. They had...
Pity.
Sorry, Holmes. No information here.
This...
What did you learn, Watson?
They had a... This seemed to be a
Sorry, fellow. I don't mean to be brusque, but I am too occupied at the moment to concern myself with these so-called mummy murders. Perhaps if the mummy's solicitor were to contact me, then perhaps I would consider defending him.
Sorry, Holmes.
They had...
Excuse me?
Sorry.
It appears.
They had...
I'm sorry.
Such a tragedy. Fine men or...
Go on.
Hello? Is anyone there? Mr. Harmon, are you at home?
Apparently so, Watson. Look.
Oh, what ghastly business. Everyone will assume the mummy has struck again.
Hardly a plausible assumption. This poor fellow has a knife in his back and not a scrap of sheeting about his neck.
How very observant, Holmes.
Ring up Scotland Yard. This case is simple enough for them to solve.
You've solved it already.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Obviously, it was the butler.
Butler? What butler?
Exactly my point. A man as wealthy as Akram Farmi would always have a manservant about him. After the foul deed, this one obviously beat a hasty retreat. It appears.
This seemed to...
It's quite amusing all the...
They...
Sorry.
It appears.
Sorry, Holmes.
This seems...
Here. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then. Here. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking... Positive. Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court now stands in order. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then. Terribly sorry, gentlemen, that... Here. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who... Terribly sorry.
Oh, I know it's the...
Here.
Or is it?
Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? Positively incorrect. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? Positively. Here. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer? Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? And what makes you so certain? What was Travis' motive for killing Turnbull? And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him?
Okay. We're in the first one.
Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into them. And what makes you so certain? And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him? Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murder. And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him? Terribly sorry. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy. And what makes you so certain? And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him?
Okay, weird. What? It's great. I want to through all the fights. Okay. You know, all you know is.
Mr. Holmes, I
Can't
understand
be all-
you've been looking at... And what of Andrew Weatherby? So, you say Travis killed Turnbull and Weatherby?
Yes, I believe he did, my lord.
But what was his motive to kill Weatherby, Mr. Holmes? Terribly...
Okay. Right now. Okay. Got it now. We got it now.
Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking...
Philip?
And what makes you so... And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him? So, you say Travis killed Turnbull and Weatherby?
Yes, I believe.
Ah, revenge. The oldest motive in the book. Now, Mr. Holmes, who killed James Windibank? This Travis seems to be quite a busy fellow. What made him kill James Windibank? Well, you've done an admirable job in resolving this mystery. I'd say you're on a par with just about any other armchair detective out there.
Sweet.
I would suggest, however, that you rethink this case again, thereby improving your sleuthing skills.
My word, dear Holmes, perhaps we are in the wrong business altogether. I think I will ring up the university immediately and see if we might enroll in a detective course.
Well, Watson, I believe this case is solved. And for your information, it was not the mummy.
Come, Holmes. I never thought for a moment it was the mummy.
Of course not, Watson. However, the murderer and the mummy did have one thing in common.
What's that?
They both were the only ones present at the time of the murders, except,
yeah.
of course, the victims.
You state the obvious, Holmes.
Ah, but it is seeing the obvious that is important. First, I saw no reason to assume that we were dealing with more than one murderer. Secondly, the locations of the murders limited the number of suspects.
That's true.
Limited them? The first murder was in Egypt, the second on ship in the middle of the sea, and the third in London. You call the entire
He
population
sneaked on.
of London and Egypt a limited number of suspects?
No, Watson. We had to find someone who was in Egypt for the first murder, on the ship for the second, and in London for the third.
Oh, but of course.
According to the newspapers, the Eastern Empress was in Bombay at the time of Ebenezer Turnbull's murder, so that eliminated the ship's crew as suspects. Thus, I needed the list of passengers who boarded the ship at Cairo. It was our visit to Jardine Mason and Company that provided our first critical clue. From it, I learned that Philip Travis was a passenger. I then learned that Travis was the chap who reported on the first murder. He became one suspect, but I had no motive. Clarissa Weatherby, who was also at the scene of the murder in Cairo, was another possible suspect, since she appears to have had a bit of a dalliance with Mr. Uruburu there on the high seas. So I had found her motive for the murder of Weatherby, but not a motive for the murder of the others.
Then whom did you eliminate?
Mrs. Weatherby. Her hands were not strong enough even to open a jar of English toffee, let alone strangle a grown man.
And what of Travis's motive?
It seems that Travis was a student in the Egyptology department at London University and had studied under James Windibank. He wanted very badly to be chosen as a member of the expedition, but Windibank turned him down. Instead, Weatherby was chosen and Travis was furious. So there you have the motive for two of the murders.
And what of his motive for the murder of Turnbull?
Evidently, Travis had written a vicious article questioning Dr. Turnbull's credentials to lead the expedition. Turnbull's response was quite harsh, probably powerful enough to drive an odd duck like Travis to murder.
Very impressive, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
And that's it. I'll play a different game now. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys later. I'll try to do better the next games, but till then, bye.